Everyone, I guess I'm beating this dead horse to death. I don't know. But 2 weeks ago, when I was up at my friend Cindy's visiting and I did the last Tennie Talks, we usually try to come up with the topic then so we can share it. And it just popped into my head. So let's talk about adult children of alcoholics. And I realized it hadn't been long since I've talked about adult children of alcoholics. But can we really talk about it enough? Can we really talk about it enough? Well, there's, good morning. Is that Ashley? Right. Okay, all righty. Well, I got sidetracked, a little bit of ADD. There went a bird, okay. So I'm talking about adult children of alcoholics again, and usually I include any form of dysfunction, and that is true, but I want to focus on children who are raised in alcoholic homes. There is a difference, as many similarities as there are with people who are raised in other types of homes, where there is any form of abuse. They can have the same symptoms, but I want to focus on adult children of alcoholics. Almost 10% of our population, 28.6%, 28.6 million people in the United States are adult children of alcoholics. Think about that. 28.6 million people. That's about about 10% of the population. 6.6 of them are under 18 years of age. And if we could start, like I've got some therapists on here, and if we could start working with the families early and with those children early, they wouldn't have to grow up with all the symptoms that I'm going to be talking about. And there is hope. There is so much hope and there is so much healing. But if people don't do their own work, they will not get well. You cannot ride the coattail of perhaps your parents get in recovery in your adult life, or late teens. You can't ride on their coattail for recovery. You got to do your own. And so I've already got that preaching voice and the sound of my voice. So anyway, I'm going to get started. Before I do that, I want to say I was on the alumni call last night, and it was just so nice. I'm going to be jumping back on there. And so invite all of you to join us on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock when you can for the alumni call, because it's anyone that has gone through any program at Shades, and there's just that sort of that identification of people. So anyway, that's the plug for alumni meeting Tuesday night, 7 o'clock. So actually, who are adult children of alcoholics? They are children who grew up in the disease of alcoholism, and the parents were either alcoholic or a guardian. It doesn't matter. It is who raised those children. If they're alcoholic, there's going to be imprints made on their brain early on, because they grow up and I say they, like, I'm not talking about me, but any of us who grew up in the disease of alcoholism, a lot of times grew up in unpredictability. You never knew what was going to happen. Let's say the dad's alcoholic. And this is a true story, but I won't get into all of that. The wife's all ready to go shop for Christmas on a Saturday afternoon or sometime, and she waits for the husband, and he never shows up. It doesn't show up till maybe Sunday morning. And, the frustration, because when you live in the disease of alcoholism, you know that the alcoholic is out drinking. So or you figure that he's either dead or she's out drinking, and that makes you, the non-alcoholic, want to kill them. So what I want to say is a lot of times the non-alcoholic does the most damage to a child. There is something in children who know that the alcoholic is sick. What about the non-alcoholic? They're the ones that's doing the screaming. You know, they respond to problems by screaming, by sarcasm, by cutting the alcoholic down with their tongue, by slamming doors. So it's not just the alcoholic, it is the disease of alcoholism. I want to make that clear. It's the disease of alcoholism. And by the way, it's alcoholism, not alcoholism. We don't get over the tendency for the behavior. That's why we have to work on our behavior every day. You know, you give me someone that's not drinking, but that's not working on the inside. That's where it is. It's an inside job. I'll show you a dry alcoholic, someone that is miserable, and they're miserable to live with. Recovery is a day at a time, one day at a time, that we peel off those layers. And so it's devastating to children to live in the environment of where, you know, there's one parent that's alcoholic and then the other parent is acting out some way. And what that does, it brings it often, adult children of alcoholics will suffer from low self-esteem. Now, you would never know it if you are in the workplace with an adult child of an alcoholic, or you're on a board in a church situation or a school situation, or, you know, they're going to be the ones that's going to be the president of the PTA. They're going to be leading their, you know, these, they overcompensate. And so a lot of times adult children of alcoholics, when they're not in recovery, they become your overworkers because, and then, you know, one reason is because they really don't know what their worth and value is. They have very low self-esteem. And so they get their good feelings about themselves by what they do. They become human doers instead of human beings. And that goes into, can be severe codependency. You know, but to work with them in the workplace, now it can be the opposite. But by and large, your adult children of alcoholics are your go-getters. And they keep going to try to get it because they don't feel okay on the inside, and so they excel. Now, once they get tired of doing that, they can go exact opposite and not get out of bed. So, self-esteem and this intense desire to please other people. Adult children of alcoholics grow up trying to please particularly the alcoholic. And then the non-alcoholic cannot be pleased at all. They are, and I'm not putting it, it is horrendous to be the partner of a practicing alcoholic. And so everyone needs help. But anyway, what happens then is adult children of alcoholics have that intense desire to help other people. And then they want to help other people, but they want you to notice. They want you to notice what they're doing. And they want you to compliment them. Adult children of alcoholics thrive when they're not in recovery. They thrive over compliments, and they'll point out their achievements. So maybe you will say something and you might say, oh, that's good, and walk away. That's not what they want. They want praise because they missed it in childhood. It's such a missing for adults to be raised in the disease of alcoholism. And I keep wanting to say it's a disease. It's not something that people chose to have so they could make their kids miserable, where they could grow up and have their own problems. It's not that. It is a sickness, it's a disease, and unless treated, it's, the alcoholic will either live their life out in some form of an institution, either treatment, a jail, a hospital, or they will die. They die of the disease of alcoholism. Or guess what? They recover. They recover. And that's what we're all about, is helping the alcoholic recover, but then looking around at the harm that has been done to the children. Okay, so, and right early on, oh my goodness, the alcoholic feels so guilty that, and the alcoholic, this is why I think they must get into a 12-step program and have that kind of support, because otherwise, if they have a conscience, and most alcoholics and drug addicts that I know have huge conscience, and what they'll do is when they look around and see the damage that they've done in the family, the guilt and the shame is so horrendous, sometimes it'll take them back to their drug charge. But anyway, all right, so adult children of alcoholics, not only do they want to please people, they have a deep fear of abandonment. They fear that they're going to be left, that somebody's going to, and that can be a real feeling, where sometimes in domestic violence, that usually can be the center of it, can be, an alcoholism outbreak, and, fussing and fighting, and, and the children will be overlooked, or they'll be picked up and put in child protective services. But anyway, so adult children of alcoholics have a fear of personal criticism. And I could, bless my heart, I could remember as a young adult and getting, going to school for the first time and getting, educated to work in this field. I took every, like, instead of taking what the professor said to heart, that's something I might change or, might do or implement, I'd take it as criticism. It would hurt my last sensitive feeling. And then another thing, I can remember doing this in my adult life, early adult life, before I found recovery. Maybe I'd be in a group, maybe at church. I'd be visiting with somebody, and someone would come up and compliment that person. And I'd get my feelings hurt. Well, what about me? Why aren't they complimenting me? Now, I'm talking about deep hurt. I'm talking about deep ACOA hurt. So if this doesn't apply to you, well, you can take a nap or whatever, but we're going deep on the deep hurt of adult children of alcoholics. And we can look so good from the outside a lot of times. We clean up good. We, turn out to be, good parents. We keep spotless houses. We do this, we do that. But on the inside is what is breaking down with adult children of alcoholics. And so adult children of alcoholics have difficulty expressing their emotions. They can go from 0 to 1,000 in a split second, and not every adult child of an alcoholic is a rager. Just don't push the limit, though, because that possibility is there. If they've lived in the disease of alcoholism, and they have lived, and I am an adult child of an alcoholic, and I am the non-alcoholic, I did more harm to our children than my husband ever thought about doing. And children know that. Say on a certain level, children know that the alcoholic's sick. what in the world is wrong with that non-alcoholic? What's wrong with them? They're the ones that's creating the chaos. They're the ones that's doing the hollering, the screaming, and the slamming doors and running off and coming back and making declarations. If you don't stop drinking, I'm going to do this, do that. And they may leave and they'll come back. You know, it's both of them. And it goes back, the disease of alcoholism. Okay, adult children of alcoholics have, I said that, expressing their emotions. And so when they are used to hearing chaos in the family, that hollering and screaming and all, they ignore it altogether and push those feelings down, or they'll become your little scapegoat and they'll act it out. You show me an acting out kid in a family, and I'm going to show you some form of chaos. And I'm not blaming it on parents. I'm blaming it on the disease. By the way, while I'm saying this, adult children of alcoholics, many of us grow up thinking, I am never going to be like her or like him. And we make that declaration and we become over responsible. We are the ones showing up for everything and all of that and all of that. But the thing about it, if an adult child of an alcoholic does not get help, they are going to raise their children. There may not be any alcoholism in the family, in the one that they've created. There may not be. But for someone to step in and look inside that family system, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between active alcoholism and kids being raised by untreated ACOAs. It produces the same results. And I could give you statistic after statistic. I'll tell you, adult children of alcoholics hate to hear that. And I did, because we strive so hard to be different, and we try to get perfect. And, but we're the ones that bring that, and what adult children of alcoholics can get addicted to, number one thing is church. Oh, they get so religious. And they wear everybody out with it. I'm not talking spiritual, I'm talking religion. I'll tell you, see, adult children of alcoholics, we think we're so bad and that we need to get good. And that's why I started to church in that Southern Baptist church from the time my oldest son was 4 months old. And the last few years I haven't been going to church as much. I go, but I don't go as much as I used to. And the main reason I went, and then I began to drag my husband, poor thing, because I thought we were both very bad people and that we need to get good. And that's why I thought we could get good in the church. I didn't know we were sick, needing to get well. So I drug, from 4 to 7 kids, depending on how many of his children was living with us at the time. Nevertheless, we filled up the third pew from the front on the left-hand side every Sunday morning. That pew was full of the McCartys. People didn't dare think about sitting in that pew because that's where all the McCartys sat. We were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Tuesday for visitation, Wednesday night. We were there every time the church doors opened. I taught Sunday school, my husband did, and he was still drinking. And we were hiding it. His father was a Baptist minister here in Buffalo Gap. And we hid the alcoholism. I hid it from his family. That's what the non-alcoholic does. And so, I didn't mean to get off into my story, but I can easily do that. The church is one way that adult children of alcoholics, they can almost get addicted to trying to get good enough through church. We didn't know that we were sick and needed to get well. And so, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells us to get back into our churches, get with our ministers and rabbis and, priests, get back, and be a part of the community around us. It's not all about just staying in a 12-step program. It's about getting into community, including church. Okay, so adult children of alcoholics cannot access or vocalize their feelings. Now, some of them can get very silent and give you the silent treatment. And if you've ever been around, have any of you ever been around someone that gives you the silent treatment? Silence is the ultimate, we call it silent violence. It's the ultimate of abuse. To get so silent and withdrawn that you will not say a word. Now, my husband, bless his heart, my rage and my anger scared him to death. I know it. So way he responded, he would get silent. And when I say silent, I mean silent. He'd get mad at me and wouldn't speak to me for 30 days. Not that I was counting, marked it off of the calendar, 18 days at a time. Silent violence. And that's, he also was an adult child of an alcoholic. He didn't know how to show feelings, and so I showed enough feelings for both of us. But I couldn't vocalize my true feelings. I couldn't talk about the hurt and the pain. The feelings I had was anger and rage and condemnation and criticism. So how does an adult child of an alcoholic rescue that drowning kid? You are drowning. If you're an adult child of an alcoholic, you literally drowned. It feels like you're going down for the third time. Can't catch your breath sometimes. So I want to go through something that hopefully might help you. I've talked about it a lot, but I don't know that we can talk about it too much. There is a solution. There is a solution, folks. And the first solution, no one's going to come in and rescue an adult child of an alcoholic. I always wanted to be rescued. I kept trying to rescue the alcoholics in my life, and I thought, well, when's somebody going to rescue me? Even as a kid, my mother was very ill with the disease of drug addiction and alcoholism. And I want to say I loved my mother dearly. She was like my child, my baby, and I took care of her. And then it was just the two of us. Then my sister would come in, from out of town, and they would get to talking and usually talk adult talk, and I would run off. Hoping they would go go look for me, and they never did. And that's what adult children of alcoholics, we want someone to notice us. Hey, here I am. Guess what? No one's going to come and rescue you. You have got to rescue yourself. It is an inside job. Now you can get help. You must get help along the way. But this is your job to recover for yourself, not for someone else. And you've got to do the work. So what do? You simply, you grow yourselves up. We have to become adults. I look like an adult. I had a house full of kids. I did adult things. But you let something happen. Well, something happened. My husband not come home from work. He'd been drunk, or somebody said something, or whatever. I was a reactor. I would react out of rage instead of respond out of love. I had no idea of how to respond out of love because I watched my dad, how he handled my mother getting drunk and using pills and going to the hospital at least once every 2 weeks. And I am not exaggerating, because I would be in the ambulance riding with her. That's a whole story within itself. And so the rage of my father, I picked up his rage. and children begin to pick up parents' feelings. If you don't think you have, I hate to tell you, if you haven't done any work around being an adult child of an alcoholic, you're carrying your family's, your parents' feelings because they didn't know how to care of themselves. And it's like they handed them off to you. My dad handed off rage, and I became a rager. My mother felt sorry for herself, so she gave me self-pity. That's a deadly combination. Feel sorry for yourself, then get mad at people for not easing that pain. Okay, so simply put, we've got to grow the kid up. And because one's going to come rescue you. So we must do our own work. There's no way around it. And so what does the work look like? First thing that I could recommend for anyone is to get, and it's not necessarily the first thing, but find an ACOA group in your town for adult children of alcoholics. And you're going to find them through Al-Anon. Al-Anon usually, and then you can find them in all large cities and some smaller towns, and you can also find them online. I had been in a 12-step program for years until we had the movement started, the ACOA movement started by Claudia Black, and we actually brought her here for a conference, and then she became one of our first clinical directors. And so that's where we started learning about adult children of alcoholics. And then when I walked into my first ACOA meeting in Dallas and started hearing those people talk about being an adult child of an alcoholic, I was home for the first time. I had never heard anybody talk about being an adult child of it, and it is much different. Now, many of those people sitting in there, we have our own addictions, but it's much different than going to an Al-Anon meeting or going to an AA meeting because it's a different focus. You go into an ACOA meeting and you're talking about the kid inside of you. They're talking about the kid inside of them and how they have come to love that part of themselves and learn to nurture that part. I did not know how to do that. I didn't know. And so I became a huge believer in ACOA work. And guess what? I had to go back, and I had already done a lot of therapy for my eating disorder and sexual abuse and this and that, but I had to go back and do this ACOA work separate and apart. And it was really the core to everything. Okay, so get to a 12-step program through ACOA. Find one online if nothing else. Another thing, which is equally as important, is find a good therapist. Find a good therapist that is trained in working with adult children of alcoholics. Now, they don't necessarily have to be an adult child of an alcoholic, but they need to be trained in how to work with folks like us, because we, adult children of alcoholics, we can absolutely take charge of any therapy session. Adult children of alcoholics on an average is some of the smartest people on the face of the earth. We have high IQs. We know how to take charge of groups. And so you're going to have to get a strong therapist that understands adult children of alcoholics, or you're going to be throwing your money away because they're going to let you take over the session if they don't understand. Before long, they'll be trying to counsel you, the therapist. The adult child of an alcoholic will be able to zoom in on a therapist and know what their problems are, and at the end of the session, they'll be counseling them. So you've got to go to someone that is trained. So how do you find out? You interview therapists. You interview them. You're going to be spending your good money to go see them. Find out about them. Interview them. Ask the right questions. Another thing, if they don't have you to do this, or your sponsor and ACOA doesn't do this. Do it on your own, and this is write an autobiography. You go back to your very earliest memories and start writing your autobiography, and write from the heart, not the head. You do have to remember, but then once you remember, the head will want to discount the importance of what you're writing down. Write it all down and do it in 5-year segments. In this way, you do this in order to get your story straight. A lot of times, people aren't interested in your story. And, maybe you've tried to tell it before and they are bored with it. They don't want to hear about it. Write it down so you can see it in black and white. And then be careful who you share that with. Once you start writing it down, those early memories are going to start surfacing. And it's those early memories, and sometimes it can be before the actual severe alcoholism happens in a family. Alcoholism is progressive. There's a starting place and there's a finishing place. And so children may remember those latter stages, but they don't have the memories of the early stages. And so once you do your autobiography, you're going to get those earliest memories. Because alcoholics, anyone with an addiction, there's, people who are addicts, we have our own set of symptoms. And one of them is not knowing how to handle situations appropriately. We either rage and scream and cry or get silent or all that. So write down your earliest memories. And two of the best tools are pen to paper. Pen to paper. After you write that auto, then when you have any feelings to come up, we started doing this, and I'm not saying that I created it or anything. I'm not taking all that. I'm not all of that and something else. But I'm telling you, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, I was having my alcoholic clients at the Serenity House do this, and I made it up. I had never heard of it, but other people started doing it anyway. That's just a disclaimer. What I would have them do is to write with their dominant hand, write a paragraph or a sentence to the inner child. Write a paragraph. And then come back and write the same thing in your non-dominant hand as if you're the inner child. Write it with your non-dominant hand. When you write with that non-dominant hand, it begins to wake up the brain, and it wakes up the memories, and then take that to your therapist and look at it, because the child remembers, but you're going to have to get to that child part to really remember. And one of the things early on in COA work, there were some of the big treatment centers just starting, and they're great. I've sent people there, I've sent my kids there, and that's the Meadows and Sierra Tucson. They were the first ones, and the Karen Foundation back east, they were some of the first ones to ever start ACOA work. And so the rest of us kind of followed suit, those of us in the field, but they started it. And we do this, doing meditations. You must go inside and get in touch with that child on the inside. And the way you do this, and that's, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'm going to tell you anyway, and the way you do that is you get still. You get still, and you go inside, and you begin to visualize that little child. Now, meditation is great. We had no meditation. I'll tell you, John Bradshaw was the first one that I ever heard do inner child meditation. And so I took it, improvised it, and we do that at Shades. We do several inner child meditations, because when you can close your eyes, get still, go inside, and visualize that little inner child. Now, sometimes people can't at first because they're mad at the kid, or they have a fear of what's going to be in there, and so they put this wall up of themselves, because of the fear. But if you're willing to do this work, and I'm saying the deep dive work, you're going to have to dive into it. Meditation is the best. And also do that either in a group or with a therapist. Let them take you through a guided meditation. But begin to visualize that child. And the first time you do, really notice what age the child is. And the more you do it, you can get deeper and the child will get younger. And then early on, what I was saying is in these treatment centers, and I remember going to the Meadows for one of my family members' family weeks, and they had a bookstore, and it was full of stuffed toys, stuffed animals. And when they were doing the inner child work, they would have them. I don't know if there's a marketing thing or what, I don't care. They would either have their family send them a stuffed toy, or they could go to the bookstore and buy. They had everyone carrying around a stuffed animal to, to hold close to represent their inner child. Well, I'm a doll lover. I've been a doll lover all my life. And so stuffed animal didn't work for me. And so I got me a doll, and I had lots of dolls, but this had to be, you'll get my little doll, will you? That long hair. It had to be a special doll. I want to get you one anyway, the first one was a little infant, and so I didn't care to read. This is a thing about those early days of ACOA work. You would see board members carrying teddy bears to the friggin' board meeting. Don't do that. That is not appropriate. You are becoming the child. You do not want to be the child. You want to be the adult. In order to do ACOA work, you're going to have to be an adult. You can't be the kid. I hate to tell you. You're going to have to get in touch with that part of yourself. So, I started out with the baby. And then later, as I got more into it, I always loved clothes or wanted to be a fancy dresser. And so I went one day and found this, because I did have curly black hair when I was a kid. I went and found this doll. Isn't she the cutest thing? And she's got a white fur coat on, and so she helped me a lot for those years. Here you go. Just holding her up, and she helped me in those early days of inner child work with that older part of myself. 6, 7 years of age. She was a normal weight. I chose a normal weight child. I was very obese as a child. So get you a stuffed animal or a doll, something that when you're doing meditation, you can hold close to your heart. All right? Meditation. And meditation is, it's really mindfulness therapy. It goes into, it's being aware of your feelings. It is being aware of your bodily sensations. Mindfulness is a part of meditation. And if you can just start it first, getting yourself still, closing your eyes, and everything in your life's going to come in there. But you're going to have to stay focused and be mindful. And if you could start looking in your mind's eye at that little child and focus on that. So mindfulness is a big thing. And when that happens, you're going to begin to get in touch with your feelings. You'll begin maybe to get in touch with bodily sensations. A lot of times, adult children of alcoholics will come to us doing an intensive or something, and at the first day they claim, well, my family was just perfect. There was no abuse there, no abuse. And we're not going to contradict that. It's their story, not ours. But invariably, as they get into their story and they begin to uncover and discover what's underneath there, then they get to discard some of those feelings and leave what we say their crab and buffalo gap. But you must get down deep and look at those things, and mindfulness will help you do that. And then the body, when you get into mindfulness, the body remembers, and you're going to start having body sensations. And I will tell you what helps that is good massage therapy. And, to go to, and I've mentioned this, Rolfing, it's a form of massage therapy. Rolfing is good for adult children of alcoholics because they get way down into the tissue. The only thing about Rolfing, it can hurt if you don't give them, they'll say, I'm going to give you, 1 to 10. If the pain gets bad, tell me on a 1 to 10 how you are. Well, I was strong and big, and I wanted to get the most out of that Rolfing session, and I would never admit that it was hurting. Well, it nearly killed me. So that is part of being an adult child of an alcoholic, is really not speaking up for ourselves, But massage is good. Massage is good because the issues live in our tissues. And as you begin to get good massages and you release it, but get a massage therapist that knows about release work. Or you can have your therapist in there. It's really good to have your therapist in there also, particularly if you suspect any form of sexual abuse. And sexual abuse happens in adult children of alcoholics a lot of times. In that, a lot of times the non-alcoholic will take the child hostage. They may not overtly sexually abuse the child, but they can covertly by, making the child more important than it is, holding them close to them. The alcoholic in their alcoholic stupor sometimes sexually abuse children, and don't even know it if they're in a blackout. So Rolfing massage therapists can help wake up some of those memories and keep, the memories are not going to kill you. The feelings are not going to kill you, not working through them well. All right, so a good guideline is when you feel those negative feelings or you feel a body sensation, know that you can count on that you're dealing with the past, you're not dealing with the present, okay? If your feelings are hysterical, they're historical. If something happens, stuff happens. You're at work, you didn't get that promotion, or somebody didn't come in and you can't leave, or whatever. You have an upset during the day. And, it's something that it's not the end of the world, but you get hysterical over it. You can count that it is not about that incident. You have gone all the way back to your history and brought it up to the present. And so not only have you got those feelings of the past, but you've got those feelings of the present. And it scares people because they don't, when you start raging at them or you have this hysterical crying, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that was going to bother you that, So if you're doing that, have those big feelings. If it's hysterical, you can mark it down. It's historical. And so mindfulness, the next thing is trauma and focused therapy, trauma-focused informed therapy. Get you a therapist that understands how to work through trauma. Talk therapy is good for getting your story straight. You need to get your story straight. But after that, you become your story. You can just tell it and tell it and tell it and tell it till you are your story. Nothing changes. Trauma-induced therapy will help you do that release work. Like I said, the issues live in the tissues to get that, because what happens, particularly in dysfunctional alcoholic homes, parents are not they don't know how to handle their own feelings, and children begin to pick up, that's what we call carried feelings, and they will carry, mom's self-pity or her pain, dad's rage, their fear, their anger. The child will begin to carry it. And if you don't believe that, you come to one of our intensives. I'll show you. I won't show you. The client will show you. And so get some good trauma-focused therapy work, some release work, but be careful who you go to. Make sure that they're trained. I think it works much better in a group setting and not real large groups. We do hold our intensives to 6, 7, 8 people. 5, 6 people, it's a good number to work with. The power is in the group. When you work with another group of people that have some of the same hurts and pains that you have, it gives you that privilege to do your own work and that identification. I always tell people coming to an intensive before we ever start, pay attention to who you're going through this week with, because you're going to learn as much, if not more, about yourself from them than you are us as therapists, because that identification. All right, talk therapy, like I said, is good to get your story straight, but you can wear your story out. I've already said that. Get you a support group. I've started with a 12 steps support group, and I recommend you get into ACOA, get a sponsor, educate yourself about the family disease. If you don't know about alcoholism, if you don't know about codependency, get a good education. One of the ways you can do this, this is my talk, so I can say what I want to, but we give good education in those intensives. You must get educated about the disease of alcoholism and how it affects the whole family. And so number 4, family therapy. If you can get your family it just takes one person to start recovery to invite the rest of the family, and the whole family can begin to heal. We're doing some family weeks. I've always wanted to do this. Always wanted to do this. To do family weeks for people that not necessarily needs inpatient treatment. They've done intensives, they've done lots of maybe outpatient work, but the family hadn't done anything. Maybe they've had a session or 2 with mom or dad, but our family week, I'm just bragging on us, our family week is probably one of the best, and I've been in quite a few of them with family members. It's probably one of the best in the nation. We've worked hard to put that family week together. So do a family week, invite your family. And now we can do a week in 3 days, 2.5 days. And so people don't have to miss a whole week's of work. If you want to bring your family, maybe you've even been here and you've done one family week and nobody would do anything. But now in recovery, you're ready to really look at issues. Come back and do one, 2.5 days. And I'll be in there doing them along with my co-therapists, Karen and Kim. And family work, family therapy is very important, and it goes beyond talk therapy. And I'm not putting talk therapy down. But anyway, how you recover is I don't know how good English this is, but I've used this for many times. it's much important, that it's very important that you look at the past. So we say look back, and refeel. Feel the feelings that you felt in childhood. And then by doing that, refeeling that, and good therapy can help you refeel. And then you have a therapeutic intervention where you release that pain, fear, anger, shame. And then when you do that, you feel renewed. You feel renewed. You feel, and then when you feel renewed, then you can have healthier relationships. A lot of relationships fail because the inner child, you put the inner child up there, put the kid out there to have an adult relationship. And then we wonder why relationships don't work. This is all about growing yourselves up. And then we recover. The entire family needs to needs help in order for the family system to recover. We have had the family that I've had the most, I had 16 family members one time. It was 3 generations. I loved it, and then later on we got to treat grandkids, great grandkids of that family. And then, I have a pastoral counseling. I am a pastoral counselor. And so I got to speak at the grandmother's funeral. So, you build relationships doing this type of work. And these were very religious people, but the religion kept them hung up on not being willing to look at the past. So anyway, when you look at the past and you start healing, what happens? You get to a place of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is not about forgetting. You may not ever forget the damage that was done to you in childhood. You may not ever forget it, but you get willing to give up the hurt. As long as you carry that hurt and pain, it's like, you hurt me, Now you must work on that. Or you're going to drag it around into every relationship you have, and you're going to put your parents' face on every person, a boss, a spouse, whoever that you're around. You're going to put your parents' face and that unresolved conflict on people that you choose to be around. And then we wonder why relationships don't work. So forgiveness, that is what you work toward in therapy, in 12-step meetings, in family therapy, and where you can uncover, discover, and discard. And then if your family doesn't want to come along on the journey, and many families don't, I'm the only recovering person ever in both sides of my family. I'm the only one. If I'd waited for them to join me, I'd be dead today. So you do what we say, have a family of choice. Find people, sisters, brothers in recovery, moms, dads, family of choice. So that is what I have. Don't forget that people can recover, but you have to do the work. You must do the work. And I don't know why I'm beating this to death, I guess, but I've talked on adult children. I don't know how long ago it's been, but I think there's so many adult children of alcoholics out there. I'm hoping people that maybe will see this on YouTube or something and get some help out of it. All of you folks are pretty seasoned, and y'all know probably everything I have just said. So any feedback, anything that any of you would like to say, we have some time. Who would like to start?